Welcome back to Writing Done Right. Well, today we want to do a little tutorial once again on the computer, and we are going to have a look at the Sigil application, which is a cross-platform free and open source application that you can use to create your ebooks. Now, there are a lot of online tools. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, but I have found that using Sigil, you can manipulate every single little tiny detail of your ebook, which is actually something you do want to manage, especially since in Sigil it does not take a lot of time. So you want to make sure you can control what everything looks like, all of your meta tags, everything down to a letter, and this application will show you how to do that. We're actually going to start by showing you the comparison of an ebook that I wrote on with Sigil and taking the same manuscript and running it through one of the online tools. And I even found that even if I started with the online tools, at least the one that I used, it would be quite a bit more difficult to go back and do it right, even using that as a start. So we're not doing a whole comprehensive tutorial here on how to actually create an ebook, but I just want to give you the basic overview. What is the application? What does it look like? How does it work? Where do you get it? Those basic things we're going to have a look at, in addition to, of course, the Sigil ebook versus the online converter ebook. So we'll jump on over to the computer and finish up the tutorial from there. Okay, so here we are on the computer. You'll notice that I did switch computers, and the reason is this particular version of Linux has the absolute latest version of the Sigil ebook editor on it. The other one that I use an older version of it, just it works fine for me. This one here, I just wanted to show this one off because this is the latest version that if you're downloading this for your Windows or for your Mac, or, an Arch Linux system, you're going to get the absolute latest. I'll highlight a few of the small differences here and there. Now, before we dive in, I want to say that, yeah, you can take your manuscript and create it with an online converter. And there's good online converters that are free, good ones that are paid, but really none of them do as good of a job as you can do if you're manually putting in details. And when you're talking about having a book or something out there in the world, you actually want to spend the time to make everything done right. So this one that I have on the right is the one that I created inside of Sigil, and the one over here on the left is one that I created by uploading my manuscript to a free online converter. One of the things that you'll notice right away is the document size. So this guy here is about 600K versus the one in Sigil is only about 330K. Well, that doesn't seem like, that's less than a megabyte. What's the difference here? Well, the smaller your file is, the overall better it's going to perform. So you always want to have the file as small as you can possibly have your file be. As far as how they look, let's go ahead and see what these guys look like. Now, I'm using an application here called Bookworm. And it's just my preferred Linux ebook reader. Not that I really don't read ebooks on computer screens. I'll use tablets or things for that. But this is a good test for how things work. You'll notice here that as I stretch this, it does stretch this image. This is an auto-generated cover image, which I believe I would have the ability to put in another cover image, but I still believe it will stretch, and it will increase the file size even further. Here is the internal first page, which will not stretch. And then this is kind of what the text of the page looks like. We have this image here is fairly large. Here's our dedication and just the basic text. So we hit the table of contents page. You'll see that it still it's reserving the page numbers that were in the original book. Click in on the learning objectives. It will land to the right page, but we can't really get back to that. Where's my table of contents, this thing? I remember where my table of contents is in this thing. Let's go ahead and see if I can find that. There you go. There's the table of contents. Okay, so looking at just the table of contents, you have chapter summary, chapter summary, chapter summary, chapter. I have no idea why I have all these. Table of contents does not particularly look good. These are the references. Not sure what these are. So that's taking us to a variety of pages on the table of contents. Not quite sure what's going on that. So that's one of the downsides is all these little things like the little functional table of contents may not work well. You can, of course, go in and create it here and then fix a lot of the issues. I personally just like doing it starting with my manuscript, importing it in, and then go from there. Of course, we're not going to teach you here how to do all this. I just want to give you an overview for Sigil and why you might want to use it. All right, scroll to the end. It did reserve the scripture index here. I'm not sure why. I usually keep these out of the eBooks just because it's so easy to search for something. If you want to know where Corinthians is in the book, you can just do a simple search on any ebook application. So, and then references, though, are important. So these are what the references look like. So each one has its own separate page. It will link back to the page that it happens to come from. So if we hunt down somewhere, it just links us to the top of the page. So somewhere in here, there it is. So that'll link back to the references. So it is, for the most part, functional. Your table of contents won't look good. Your basic cover page won't look good. This is done with one of the free online ebook converters. Okay, so here we'll have a look at the one I created inside of Sigil. And what you'll notice right away is the cover image does scale correctly. So sure, it gets all big, but at least it does scale as it's supposed to scale. And let me see if I can just make it full size up here just to give it a try. That's not what I want to do. There we go. Let's just go ahead and keep it like this. All right, so here is, you'll see that the internal page now centers itself nicely, looks a whole lot nicer. And then when we log into the page, here's our basic table of contents. Speaking of which, here's the table of contents that your application will pull up. So everything here just works so much nicer. Also, each one of these guys I have linking back to the in content table of contents, so that all works quite nicely. You'll also notice that we have reserved the fonts do look quite a bit nicer inside of here. Inside of our individual headings and subheadings, you'll see that overall it does have a much cleaner, much nicer appearance because we are manually curating the book, which honestly does not take a whole lot of time. If we scroll down to the end, you'll notice that the scripture index has been removed. Not sure why I have this extra thing. I must have just missed that in taking it out. Here's our bibliography. Is now all on one page, which I think is a lot easier to read. So clicking in on this guy here, and somewhere in here is the reference. I don't remember where it is on this chapter, but somewhere in here we have a reference. Now, some of your ebook readers will actually have that highlighted in a different color. This one does not do that, but there it is, right there. There's a reference right on back to the individual references. So you can kind of see just how much nicer the application looks, how much nicer the book looks, all these kinds of things. So that's actually why I use Sigil. So let's go ahead and open this guy up and just get a brief overview of the Sigil application. Before we do that, head on over to their page, which is sigil-ebook.com. And inside of this, you can see it's a multi-platform ePub ebook editor. And so this is going to allow you to take your manuscript and convert them into the nice ebooks. So they have all the information. Yeah, it does say 1.0.0, but that doesn't mean it's new by any stretch of the imagination. This application is been around for quite some time. Go ahead and hit the Get page over here, and there will be a link to their releases. So when you land on their releases page down here at the bottom, if you're running Windows, you want to grab this X64. It's going to work on a Vista or above. We do have the Mac one here. I'll have to double check how to install it on Mac if this is just as simple as opening it up. I forgot to check that. I know it installs very well on Windows just fine. Now, the other thing that has been taken out of the Sigil application is we used to have a what you see is what you get editor built in. That was actually taken out because there were a lot of issues and bugs with it. But the same group that did Sigil also did a application called Page Edit. And you can download and install Page Edit. And now when you hit the Launch External Viewer, it's going to open up that page. And this is actually what you see, what you get editor. That's a bad example because there's no text on that page. It's going to open this one up over here. All right, so here is actually where you can come in and you can make any changes that you might want to make over here. Let's just put a change here into this. And I've never actually played around with this one here. So I believe if we just save that current file, you'll see that now on our main file, it went in and it added our change directly to our ebook. So if you are more comfortable editing in the HTML documents, you can actually edit in here. If you really like the what you see is what you get editor, then go ahead and install that page edit. And what you're going to do is come down under your preferences and under your set your default external editor. Now in Linux, this is how I call the separate application, user bin page edit. On Windows, it'll be like c:/program file /page edit dash or /page edit.exe, whatever that file happens to be. Of course, you can change all of your various settings around, what do all the different document types look like, things like that. All your different keyboard settings are over here. If there's individual things that you're always wanting to do inside of your, inside of your document, you can set a short code for it on your keyboard, spell check dictionaries, things like this. All right. Now, with that, once we're in here, of course, an ebook, if you were unaware, and I'll cover a whole separate section on just what is an ebook. An ebook itself is really just a zip file with a bunch of XHTML documents in it. Now, I have this very nicely built up so that each one of the individual sections of the book has its own file. So this is the cover. This is your title page, which is going to be this one. This is my preview pane over here. Here's my copyright. You can kind of see what it's going to look like. Table of contents, dedication, acknowledgments. So you can see that all of the individual sections over here. So here's a part that's bolded. Of course, this is what that looks like. So just highlight the part you want to be bold. And I just hot cut Control B will make things bold. I believe there's a code up here for that there somewhere. Up here, there's short menus and things like that. All right, now the other reasons you might want to use this is when you are doing an ebook, what is very important that you do is that you have a good metadata and things like that. So here is how you add a book cover. Just hit add a cover. The metadata editor, this is where you're going to add a lot of the different data. So what's your publishing, the description of your book, who is the author. We have the ISBN number. I have basic keywords and values all set in there. So you can kind of see these are subjects. The identifier is the ISBN. This is the year it's published, publisher, the description of the book. So all that is stuff that you can add just by coming in here and hitting and add a property. Grab the type of property that you are adding and then insert that in. That's actually very important. You want to make sure you have all that information so that people's various ebook readers will know how to organize and sort your individual book. The other thing is the table of contents. You can generate the table of contents directly for you based on all the different headings that you have. There's the ability to edit and then create one. So we also have the ePub 3 tools, where this is the manifest pages, which are the, you'll see at the bottom down here, the TOC NCX files and the content.opf files. These are individual files that give some information as to how the ebook functions, right? So once you make all of the edits you want to make, you want to come in here and just generate this and update. You basically want to come in and hit both of these options here. That goes ahead and updates everything so that all the tables of contents will be updated. Everything's going to work very, very nicely. Now, one of the things that I found with this application is that I used to use this for most things and then go into Calibri and do the metadata because metadata is so much nicer and easier to work with Calibri. But there's something in the last couple versions of Calibri that breaks iBooks. So distributing your ebooks to a Apple platform, either it doesn't break it on Mac OS, but it does break it on the iPad and on the iPhone. And all it breaks is the table of contents, which you don't want to break. So I stick with everything in Sigil now because I know I'm going to get a clean outputted file that is going to work and validate. There is a separate validation. You can validate individual style sheets. You should be able to validate the whole book. So the F7 will validate the whole book, which does seem to pass. I have noticed one issue inside of this, however, and that is in your metadata. There's a tag which I have removed, but there is a tag that this adds by default, and I'm not sure if Sigil adds it or if The LibreOffice adds it when I export as the first ebook file, so that's prior to editing it. But I end up getting a meta tag that will validate correctly, but Ingram's Spark does not like. And so you need to go through and just delete that meta tag at the beginning. So it's going to be right in between head and end head. There's going to be a meta tag up here. Just delete whatever that tag happens to be if you're having that error on Ingram's Spark. Okay, but the overall thing here, we can come into our menus here. We have a variety of different things. So split at cursor, this is going to take a file and split it in half. So if I have open up chapter 2 here, I'm not going to save any changes I do to this, just an FYI. So here is a, right at this part here. So this is basically a break in the section. I can put my cursor right here if I want to edit this guy, and come on down and hit split at cursor. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a new file. So it's going to take everything here, and now our file ends right where our cursor was. And now we have a brand new file here, which picks up where this left off. So I'm looking up here and I'm not seeing that individual meta tag. So I think that meta tag comes in here from the application I import into Sigil from. So I don't think that's a Sigil thing. But anyway, that's how you can use add a new page if you want to split a page around. You can, let's see, you can insert a split marker. You can insert files. So your files could be images, video files, audio files. The other things you can do is you can create style sheets. You can embed fonts into here. You want to be careful with embedding fonts. I don't use fonts for really anything else other than titles, because not every ebook reader interprets them correctly. And since not every ebook reader interprets fonts correctly, I tend to not want to use fonts all throughout, although I have actually done it in some other books. For example, the introductory paragraphs that I wrote with my co-author on Happy Holidays, we did actually use a separate font for those. And when you have an ebook that respects your embedded fonts, it looks absolutely amazing. But not every ebook reader respects those fonts. So make sure that you're not over-relying on external fonts. All right, so under your format, you can make things bold. You can see what the hotkeys are over here: strike through, subscript, superscripts. You can align left, right, center, justify. You want to be careful with your alignment stuff because sometimes this is controlled by your ebook reader itself. So again, don't do anything with your alignment that is critical for the reading of the book. Bullet lists, number lists, nothing big there. You can do find and replace. So if you pull up the find and replace, you can find individual things. If you need to change somebody's whole name throughout, you could find and replace it. And you can set it to go current file, selected files, or all files. So be aware of that. So you can do a full patch, replace through everything. You can find next items. You can replace next items. Under your tools, I think we've already been through most of the tool menu here. Nothing too out of the ordinary here. Just add your covers, metadata editors, table of contents editors, things like that. Here's your views, your various toolbars. Now, I found on this version here, my preview toolbar was not selected by default. On my Windows install, when I installed this on Windows to test it out, that preview was there by default. If it's not there, just come on down to View and click on Preview, so you'll get your preview there. And then you can adjust your size here so you can see your table of contents or not table of contents. So this will get you everything that you need there. Okay. So let's see, validation results, Windows, nothing significant there. And there are some various plugins and things you can do. We won't cover that. So that's just kind of a brief overview with the application itself. Let's go ahead and close this out. And I'm going to, just for the interest, I'm going to open this guy up and see how this one looks inside of this. So you can kind of see this is why the file is so big. Each one of these files is carrying with it a whole lot of meta tags up here and things like this. And basically, each one of these files has to have its own separate it's just its own block of text up here. All this is taking extra text. That's why that my file was so much smaller, is because it has a lot less individual. It has a lot less individual files in it. So we can see here that we have separate classes for about everything. So it's going individual pages. This all adds a lot of sizes to it. So here's your style sheet for the page, basic style sheet. There's so many line items in here, and almost all of them are going to be very similar. So you'll just want to clear all this kind of stuff out. This is why I don't use online converting tools. Even paid ones will do this. You'll get something that functionally works, but it doesn't work well. You'll see here, it's the same picture. Why do they have so many different versions of it? And you can actually get away with putting in one picture and just linking that one picture to each file that needs it. So that's why this file is so much larger, and why I don't like to use individual just online converters and things for making ebooks. It just doesn't turn out being quite as good as it could be. So that is a little bit about Sigil and how that works. You should be able to get in here and jump in and use it, but we will definitely have more tutorials on this application down the road. If there's specific issues you are looking at and you're trying to figure out in this application, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will do my best to get those answered. So thanks for coming along on this, and I hope that this video helped you to get your writing done.